You can hear me good. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Norman Mac Show. Host Rob Noor. Hope you're all doing fantastic today. I know I am. Now, you may notice I'm back home. I got my new setup. My great editor, Black Elk, helped me with that intro video. A couple tweaks we have to make to it, but that's okay. He did a fantastic job. He is better than I deserve. So if you check out the Black Elk on X, he's just fantastic. He's helped me tremendously with the show. I can't say enough good things about him. Put together that new intro for me. We're on StreamYards. I'm getting more used to it. And I got me some new headphones. And you want to know what's unbelievable to me? So this microphone's sort of new. And I've been using this headset that I got here. Let me show you this. So this is the headset I've been using. I've been using this headset for 8 years, maybe 6 years, somewhere around there. And this came in a 2-pack for $30, and I got it when I used to play PlayStation 3 or 4, and it's got the, you know, the little speaker there. All right. So anyways, this headset here, I've been using it forever. It came with a blue one that I used to have at work when I would use it as well. And it hooks up into the microphone now that I have this new microphone, which is nice because you could hear yourself. So I get an idea of how I sound like to you all out there, which is good. I like being able to hear that. I realize how horrible that headset was when I got these new ones and put them in. I could only hear like one out of every other word that I'm myself saying through that headset through here. And like, as I'm listening to people, I'm realizing the quality of me being able to hear them with that old headset, how much worse it is. HN says, I told you would only call in if you didn't post the video of the debate. I don't remember seeing that. I don't give a shit whatsoever. I didn't label the video. You are a troll. That's what I would say. That's really messed up, man. HN's mad because the newest video that my editor put up was from my live stream where I embarrass HN on January 6th. Apparently he said he would only join me live. He's now claiming if I didn't post that video up. The video was already posted as an entire live stream. I don't take my stuff down, so the live streams are all still up. That being sectioned out with your username HN, which isn't even in the title of the video. I don't care if you feel bad about that. You could say that it's messed up. I don't care. You're free to leave the channel and never call in again. If I was you, I wouldn't call in again based on the poor performance that you had. So, anyways, let's get to a super chat that we got already. Corey Barton says, early prediction, Rob wins for $2. I think you're wrong. That is not my prediction. My prediction is he's not going to call in. He ain't going to do it. I'm the right-wing version of Destiny. Cool. Just so everyone knows, this guy's freaking out because he called into my show live. I left the live stream up so people could hear the call-in. And then my editor edited out his 30-minute call and put the video up on YouTube. That's why he's so upset. Cool. That makes me the right-wing version of Destiny. So this guy, my captain, was going to call in. He was going to talk about January 6th, left-wing violence. As the... Yeah, it's got a softer voice. Great. I'll sing to you a little. I thought about it. Maybe we'll do after, since I know this debate's not going to go, we'll still do a show, don't get me wrong, but maybe we'll do a second video after this, a live stream. Karaoke live stream. You know, I am the karaoke champion of my little town here. Did you know that? It's true. True story. There was never an official vote, but I declared myself that. Anywho, I used to live above this bar, and they got a karaoke set up. The guy who runs the bar is younger than me, but he's a good friend of ours, me and my wife's. And he got this karaoke set up, and I was singing dancing, Mother, tell your children not to look my way. Except I was really belting it out, you know. And I blew the speakers up. True story. First day he had these speakers, my friend's like, you jerk, you blew my speakers up. Sing a little Glenn Danzig. So I officially declared myself karaoke champion of the county, which seems reasonable. It's like, you know, that's the equivalent of like dunking a basketball and breaking the backboard, right? That's how I look at it. You know, that's how I see it. So we'll talk more about some left-wing violence today. We'll take call-ins if people want. I have zero empathy. I love that people like HN are here. You're the right-wing version of Destiny because you have zero empathy. You are a psychopath the way you treat people. Explain. What have I done that's psychopathic in how I treat people? What have I done? It's that. So this is because you apparently put in the chat, please don't put this video, don't edit it as its own thing when you called in. I didn't see that. My editor put that video up, and this makes me a psychopath that doesn't have empathy for people. What did you want me to say? Holy shit, guys. Hey, I got to end my channel now. HN called in, and I didn't see that he is claiming that he put in the chat that he would only call in if that video was not left up as live. And I left that up as live. And so now my empathy for him is so great that I'm just going to disband my channel. I'm just going to disband it. Because otherwise I would be a psychopath without empathy. Right? That's it, guys. It's been a good run. Thank you to everyone that's donated. I really appreciate it. Yeah, this is exactly it. Let me debate you, Rob. Debates me, gets mopped. Rob, you put a video up about me, you psychopath. You're really upset that my editor, Black Elk, said that you were a troll in the video. Well, here's what I'll say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. HN, maybe for your own good, I should ban you from the channel. I don't want to do that. But if you're so thin-skinned that not even having your name, just having the word troll in the title of a video is forcing you to melt down so bad that you're saying I'm a psychopath without empathy, I don't think this is the right channel for you. I don't think that you have the balls or the thick enough skin to be around here. I just don't. And so, even though I enjoy you being here and being able to talk to you, I'm going to have to kindly ask you to leave, I'm afraid, because I'm seriously concerned. I don't want to affect you so negatively psychologically. It seems like you're having a very difficult time with this. So you're welcome to leave. If you can't and you think that I'm psychopathic for continuing to talk to you, then I could force you to leave, I guess, for your own mental health. Is that fair? Oh, man. All right. What are we talking about today? Have I'd like to think I've come far. Thank you. We'll bring up some posts here in a bit if I have to. Captain, my captain, was going to call in at 7 p.m. Eastern. He had a lot of things to say. Big talker. He's a big talker. He's going to show me I'm an idiot. He's going to call in. Dan Ditso says, Rob, my friend from Latin America, yeah, who called in the show the other day. Violence of leftism in the United States, that's child's play versus what continues to happen in Latin America. FARC. Yeah. Well, I think that because the situation in the United States, it's been different. So we haven't seen the political violence to the extent that we have in other countries because the United States has continued to be a global hegemon. And so even when things get bad in the United States, let's just call it as it is, right? Take out morality from it or any of those sorts of things and just look at it objectively. The truth is, you're amongst the luckiest people that have ever lived in the history of the world if you're born in the United States in today's time frame. Even as there are serious things that we should criticize, there's certainly immoral secular things that occur that I think are grotesque, if not straight up evil. But as far as what we deal with on a daily basis, I was watching a lot of videos this week while I was at work about movie scenes from medieval movies or ancient Greek or Roman scenes, and historians that were commenting on how accurate are these and giving you a picture of what it looked like in those societies. And I think that we really underestimate just how brutal most of human history is. As things break down more, you're more likely to see violence. So it's certainly true that in Latin American countries and African countries, etc., you've had political groups and a lot of groups on the left that have engaged in far more violence than what we're used to here. But we're seeing how that violence is effective here in the United States. So first, I'd like to start off with an apology and admit that I was wrong about something. So let's go to the tape. Now, what you'll find is I'm different than 95, 99% of other people that you'll see stream, because I will do things like criticize politicians that I like, positions that I like, etc. And I'll also admit when I'm wrong. And so, as you know, most of the time, sorry, hit the wrong button there. Most of the time, when I'm streaming not from my home office, Dan Ditzo, let's answer this real quick. He says, but yeah, the privilege born in the United States is one coded in the hubris of hegemony. You could say that it's also coded in human nature. Human nature is a rich history of the most powerful countries taking what they want. Although there are all sorts of horrible things that we agree with that the establishment class in the United States have done around the world. I actually want to see that ended. You actually support it, or at least you run defense for it, for when we see things like in Libya, we see things like in Syria, when we see the attacks against Donald Trump that are coming from these groups that's going against this sort of establishment authoritarianism. But that's history, my friend. Yeah, I guess if you're one of the nations that Genghis Khan wiped out, you say, well, that's not fair. It was based on the hubris of hegemony. I suppose that's one way of putting it. Another way of putting it is historically the strong have taken over the weak. Regardless of why it's the way it is, the United States was the world superpower economically, culturally, and militaristically. And it has been of huge benefit to the people that lived in this country. Zen's forehead. It's been a while. Any debates over the 19th Amendment? Not this week. So, anyways, fan of the show, Pisco, who I like to beat around in debates occasionally. You should check out the last interaction I had with Pisco and the embarrassment that it was for him. He apparently enjoys watching my show. Great. Maybe he learned something. Anyways, as I was saying, oftentimes I'm at work, I'm not here. And so, unfortunately, my shows at work usually tend to not be as good because, one, the quality isn't as high because I don't have my setup here at home and I'm just streaming mobilely on the phone. But also because oftentimes what happens is I'm not really checking out the news most of that day. I might see some headlines. I might have 5-10 minutes to look at X or some other news sources. That's about it, though. So usually I'm just going off memory. Now I have a pretty good memory. Admittedly, though, sometimes I falsely remember things or I don't remember things that have occurred. So here's our friend Pisco. He says, LOL, Rob Knorr, you ready to apologize to Chief Justice Roberts? Sad thing is he definitely didn't look up whether Roberts criticized Schumer, and you could bet his response will be some alleged double standard of me. Crying face. Didn't even look it up, ha ha! Let's hear what I said. That Roberts is going to play. Can you show me when Roberts excoriated the leader of the Democrats, Chuck Schumer? When, one, we had someone in an almost unprecedented manner leak the Dobbs decision, probably one of Roberts' clerks, which was already bad enough. And shucks, we weren't able to find out who leaked it. There's only like 20 potential people that could have, but shucks, we just can't find. Where's Roberts on that? And then once it's leaked, Chuck Schumer directly calls out Kavanaugh and says he will pay, he will reap the whirlwind. Then Democrats ignore the obvious law that says you can't, for the purpose of intimidating jurors or judges, protest them outside their property. Black and white, the law. They say, that's fine, leave all these people protest. Where was Roberts there? Why didn't Roberts speak up and say, holy shit, Chuck Schumer, you just inspired a mob to go after my fellow Supreme Court justices? And then there was an assassination attempt. Where was John Roberts there? This is what Pisco puts. John Roberts condemned Schumer for saying justices will pay the price for awful decisions. Senator Schumer, speaking while the court heard arguments in a major abortion case, directed his criticism of President Trump's two Supreme Court appointees. Roberts, who only very rarely responds to criticism of federal judgment, issues a statement on Wednesday denouncing remarks made by Chuck Schumer at a rally outside the Supreme Court. Schumer, speaking, said, Trump's two Supreme appointees, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, you have released the whirlwind. You will pay the price. You will not know what hit you going forward with these awful decisions. Yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong that I didn't recall Roberts criticizing. So good on Roberts. He called that out. Now, what Schumer did was far worse than suggesting going through the legal process of impeaching justices, which I'm not a big fan of all of this talk of impeaching judges anyways, mostly because I think it's worthless, because it would be purely symbolic, because actually there won't be enough to convict and remove these judges because you would need 67 votes in the Senate, and you ain't even near that. So I just find it to be all downside because people could say you're not respecting the judges, and no upside because there's not anything that'll happen. It's toothless anyways. But regardless, talking about a legal proceeding, something that you're allowed to do, impeachment, is different than saying they will reap the whirlwind as left-wingers are breaking the law, protesting outside of justices' homes, trying to influence their decision to the yet-released Dobbs decision, which then resulted in an assassination attempt. But yes, Ben, thanks for the $5. Says, I know it's off topic. You got to pull up Chuck Schumer's wife on Google. If you don't know who it is, it's definitely worth seeing. I think she looks pretty masculine, if that's what you're talking about. But anyways, so yeah, but I'm wrong. I didn't remember Robert saying that. And so here's my response. Yeah, I guess I was wrong about that. I'll admit when I get something wrong. Why didn't you even look? I was at work on my phone. No. Why did you assume he hadn't said anything about it? Did you search before you said what you said? I'm curious. What should be expected as far as due diligence? I said, I don't remember him saying it. I remember you defending the lawless protest outside Kavanaugh's home as not being illegal, which then led to an assassination attempt, but I didn't remember Roberts condemning it. Got it, says Pisco. Yeah, I was wrong about that. Cool. But Rob, before you say anything, you need to immediately Google search it. If you're at work, how many times have these guys been wrong about something? I'm going to listen to someone act like I didn't do due diligence that blatantly lied about Jamal Bowman. Or how about the due diligence of egg prices? You remember 2 days after the election or after Trump was sworn in when Pisco and his Progressive Victory Pack buddies like Pondering were putting out there, oh my God, it's been 3 days, egg prices are up. Where are they now? Have they said, turns out we were incorrect about egg prices? They seem the wholesale prices have remarkably fallen, even below the numbers of when Trump was sworn in. I'll admit when I'm wrong quite frequently. The left thinks that this is a sign of weakness, just like they think that you criticizing your own side is a sign of weakness. You remember the time I did this debate with, it was on Connor's channel and it was with Destiny and I forget the name of the guy, but he is British, and Dylan Burns. And we were talking about globalism and Brexit. And this British guy was talking about Brexit. And I don't know much about Brexit over the past 5 years. I know when I'm talking about the problems with globalism and how they're anti-democratic, what will happen is they give you the choice, the illusion of choice. They'll say, we'll let you vote on something like the Lisbon Treaty in Ireland. And then it doesn't go the way the globalist wants. And they say, that doesn't count. Like Brexit, like Trump's victory. That's what they do. And I was like, has Brexit even been achieved? And this guy was like, no, Beckett, that was his name. And then later I said, as we're going like 20 minutes down the debate, I was like, Brexit hasn't even been achieved. And they're all like, yes, it has. Now, it's debatable. Yes, it's technically been achieved, but there are arguments that it's still not settled because of things with Scotland, Ireland, etc. But I digress. Anyways, I was just taking the word of the British person that was there that was talking about it. And so later, when I'm wrecking Destiny on all sorts of issues on that, I was like, yeah, it's a little out of my depth. I didn't know the specific of what I said about Brexit still holds true. They drug their feet intentionally. It took years to accomplish actual Brexit. They wanted to have a second vote, et cetera, et cetera. I just didn't know if technically they had officially left by the time we're debating in 2022 or 2023. And I was like, but yeah, man, I was like over my skis. I was out of my depth on knowing exactly what's going on with Brexit today. And that's the title of Destiny's video about that. That's the little title they put up. And everyone's like, ha, ha. And it's like, yeah, I admitted that I was wrong about something they're incapable of doing. They can't. Yeah, this guy, my captain, said he was going to call in today to debate about January 6th and left-wing violence. It's not here. Who would have thought? But if someone wants to take his place. Haha, now you know how it feels, says HN. Yeah. Did I say, you're a psychopath, Destiny? You're a psychopath. That's psychopathic. You have no empathy. Did I say that? I was like, yeah, he thinks that's a sign of weakness. See the difference there? Hey, HN, would you like to call in? Are you still got a case of the SADS? You got a case of the SADS, HN? Oh, I called in and got wrecked, and now I got a case of the SADS. I'm so sad. You're good fun, HN. It's nice for you to be here. I wish that there was a better representative of your ideas. But unfortunately, you probably are about as good as it gets. That's how bad they are. So, anywho. But while we're on the subject of Roberts, let's run through a little thought experiment, shall we? Why hasn't Roberts weighed in? Now, I think I saw something like a huge percentage since the turn of the century, since 2000, of temporary restraining order and injunctions that federal courts have issued against presidents have been against Trump. Huge portion of them in the first term and already a huge portion of them this time. Now, regardless if you agree with these TROs or not, clearly there is a judicial crisis coming to the point where it is, do these federal judges have the right to just no-name federal judges put huge halts on executive power like this? Roberts is the Chief Justice, Supreme Court Justice. Why won't the Supreme Court be like, whoa, let's weigh in. Let's weigh in. Either definitively say, yeah, they have the right to do that, or no, they don't. Why won't they? And I understand there's all these, claims, there's blackmail material out there with Roberts and this, that, and the other. Trump put out a post and was like, and this is true too, for all the talk that you hear of Democrats saying like, McConnell, he blocked us from getting a Supreme Court justice and blah, 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 blah. The truth is, the liberal justices, almost to the T, you know how they're going to vote. They're almost always together in a block. It's always the conservative justices that could flip. It's Roberts, it's Barrett. But just think about that question with Roberts for a minute. So let's go through a little scenario. Let's do a little thought process. Imagine that Roberts' court says, okay, we're going to hear these, appeals from Trump's team. We're going to hear these appeals from Trump's team this week about whether or not these low-level justices, federal judges, can do this, right? Okay? And then someone leaks that decision. One of the clerks of one of the Supreme Court justices leaks the decision. And then a bunch of conservatives, then you have someone that's high up in the Republican or the MAGA movement, let's say Thomas Massie, or Massie, maybe not a good example. You have Marco Rubio, or you have Kosh isn't a good example. A high-ranking representative, Jim Jordan. And he comes out and he says, Roberts, you've reaped the whirlwind. Roberts and Barrett, how dare you go against Trump? The people will not stand for this. And then all of a sudden, you saw a bunch of people protesting outside Roberts' home. Then they're putting photos up of the school that Roberts' teenage children go to school at. And then there's an assassination attempt against Roberts. All the while, even though it's blatantly against the law, Kash Patel and the FBI decides, we're going to let this go. Okay, we'll arrest the assassination attempt, but the protest outside the house, we'll let it go. How do you think that would go? What do you think Schumer and them would be saying? What would the Democrats be saying? What would all the people that are going hysterical about Trump threatening to impeach justices, what do you think they would say in that scenario? Because that's the scenario we lived through with the Democrats. Now, I opened this show making fun of this HN guy. But once we got into the issue, I talked about how I'm willing to admit I'm wrong. Let me admit I'm wrong, though not really, because I'm going to go back in that a little. I've said this before, but it's hard. It's hard for me to admit this. If you followed my show for a long time, you know that I'm quite consistent in my hatred of political violence. I don't think there is a time and a place for it in the United States at this point. But Rob, we think there's systemic racism. But Rob, we think the 2020 election was stolen. I don't care. It's immoral at this point, and it's also not strategic from the perspective of being a conservative, because all of these major institutions will crack down on you. After January 6th, I criticized those people that engaged in violence January 6th, even though I knew it was being blown out of proportion. And I had people calling in my channel regularly that were saying, it's time to refresh the tree of liberty with the blood of tyrants. And what did I say? You're going to go to prison. They're not going to piss around with you. This is terrible. Your family's going to miss you. It's crazy. You're making a huge mistake. Don't bring that mentality to my show. And I said, as soon as you say yes, political violence is sometimes justified, everyone says yes. And my issue is the most important issue. For example, I personally think the bureaucratic state has controlled this country in the most authoritarian, anti-democratic way possible for the past 30 years, if not longer. Wow, I guess if there was ever a time to justify radical action, this would be one. Leftists might say, the whole country's systemically racist, or Trump's a Nazi, or climate change will kill us all. That's why so many of them cheered Luigi Mangione killing a healthcare executive. So make no mistake about it, I have unequivocally against political violence. Had the debate many, many times. Called out the left, called out the right. I think the violence comes far more from the left than the right. But nonetheless. And Jack Sheridan makes the same argument. How many times have we had this debate? It's nauseating. But Rob, you're saying there's never been a time ever in the history of the world that political violence wasn't justified. For example, the Founding Fathers. Wasn't that an act of political violence? At that point, they were under the British king and they had a revolution against them. So wasn't that an example of political violence? Yes, I support the Founding Fathers that declared war on the government that was over. If you want to declare war against the federal government, go ahead, announce your real name, Jack Sheridan, like the Founding Fathers did. Create a declaration that you're declaring war against the federal government and have at it. Sure, have at it. Yes, it is true that there have been historical times when political violence is justified. For every one time that it was actually justified, there are literally hundreds of thousands that people have invoked that it was justified this time where it's been wrong. So the prudent thing that we should do is always default from the position that political violence is never justified. And unless there would be an insane, beyond the threshold even imaginable in today's society, some sort of justification for that we should always reject it. Jack Sheridan's like, it's like making this argument, like, is there a difference? It's not just men and women. What about intersex? Right. Just, that's basically, but what about, anyways, not a great example, to be honest. So, but it's time to, given in light of the violence we saw from the left going into 2020, the violence that we see occurring from the left now, directed against Tesla, the intimidation against the justices that came from the left. It's time to say something that I've mentioned before, but that I'm remiss to talk about. Because when I say it, then people that say, well, the Founding Fathers were justified, right? They're going to hear what I say next and say, Because what I've always said is, if I can't convince you that morally we shouldn't do political violence, then allow me to convince you strategically it doesn't work. If you're a right-winger and you say, it's time to refresh the tree of liberty with the blood of tyrants, we're going to the Capitol, your ass will be in prison. That's where you're going. If you're a left-winger, though, the truth is it is effective. That's the truth. Because these institutions see utility in the left right now. If you're a group that the establishment institutions, the FBI, the bureaucrats that run our country, academics, if they find you useful, then yes, political violence can be useful. It can. That's not the position we find ourselves in. If your goal was to stop depictions of Muhammad being put in media, did executing a bunch of satirical journalists help achieve that goal? Yeah, it did, didn't it? All the papers in the United States were afraid to do it, weren't they? If your goal is to harm Elon Musk and Tesla, would destroying a bunch of dealerships and vandalizing a bunch of private people's cars help damage the brand of Tesla? Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? If your goal is to intimidate Supreme Court justices, might showing pictures of where their kids go to school as you're protesting illegally outside their home every day, and then there's an assassination attempt, might that be effective? It might be. If you were a right winger and you did that, your ass would be in prison. If you're a left winger, and before you question that, you can't even pray outside an abortion clinic. That's a felony. They'll kick in your door where your family resides. They don't care. But on the other side of the abortion debate, even though it's blatantly illegal to protest outside of jurors or judges' homes to help to try to convince them to influence a decision, the Biden Justice Department's like, we don't see a problem with it. Have at it. Debunking Destiny, thanks so much for the 50 Canadian dollars. Thank you. Says, hey, it's that Canadian Albertan that you debated a few days ago. I'm glad to see I made a nice splash. Trump endorsed Carney. Now people are hating him. LMAO. Did he endorse Carney? Or did he just say Carney's easier to deal with? Is that an endorsement? Yeah, there you go. Jack, Ben nails it. Jack, oh my God, Rob was right. Right. I said, as soon as I say that could be effective for the left, inevitably someone on the right's going to go, oh yeah, so we should do that. Yeah, you can't condemn overall violence because there is a time and place for violence. Someone's breaking into my home. I'm allowed to use violence for self-defense to defend myself. Oh, okay, Jack, my mistake then. Jack says, no, the point is we're not even prosecuting him. Right. One, it's a huge mistake, and hopefully Kosh Patel and them get on it. Second, it's because our side isn't as interested as going after them. So there's this woman. Someone tell me if I'm wrong about this. Her name's Data Republican. Am I correct that she's blind? Is that correct? That's right, Nescient Detective. We don't have the power. Kosh Patel's there. Pam Bondi's there. They should be doing something about it. We'll see, I guess. You could make the argument they haven't been there long, but we'll see. But certainly in the first Trump administration, they didn't do anything. Were there federal charges against the Black Lives Matter rioters? Nope. Chris Wray and the FBI basically gave them a slap on the wrist as much as possible. Excuse me. So, Data Republican, I believe, is blind. So, I'm not going to bring this up because I don't want to bring more attention to it. So, I'm not going to put the website or anything. But suffice it to say, with a little bit of searching on places like X, you can find a database that people have put up of Tesla owners. Not Tesla dealerships, which is bad enough, but owners. You yourself. You're probably a lefty. You bought a Tesla because you're concerned about climate change and you wanted an electric car. Now, people are putting up every single Tesla address that they could find, owner's address, as a sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Go get them. Go get their Tesla. And it's working. People are vandalizing. I've seen everything from people lighting them on fire, people keying them, people throwing dog shit on Teslas, people attacking them. She's deaf. Okay, not blind. My mistake. Her husband owns a vineyard, I believe. Oh, let's get to who she is. So she is someone who's been going through a lot of the data that's being publicly released by Doge and other places and sifting through it and then discussing the connections she's finding. Oh, did you know that this particular company that got $20 billion was just created 3 months before the contract? And on the board of directors is this congressman's wife? Things like that. She posts out, she finds out that her husband's vineyard's on there, and she's just like, you can tell she's pretty distraught, shook up by it. You see all of these right wingers that are being mass doxxed and swatted. By the way, one of my favorite things here, let me bring this up. This is so funny. So I mentioned I put a post up on X where I was like, hey, imagine if Republicans threatened Supreme Court justice in the same way. And this person comments, I thought this was hilarious. This person with the, of course, Ukrainian flag in their bio says, didn't Republicans just do this to Amy Coney Barrett? Someone called in a bomb threat on her sister for a ruling against Trump's agenda. I was like, I didn't hear that. Which is odd. That seems like, doesn't that seem like a news story that we would have heard about? The news would have chomped at the bit. Oh, Trump's threatening justices, and now a Trump supporter threatened a justice's sister. Right? This person's all over it, though, with the Ukrainian flag in the bio. They're all over it. Rob, but what about this? What about the Republicans that have done this? Right? So I was like, okay. I looked it up. Oops, sorry. One of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, by the way, National Review, that's your first take. It's like, I'm not exactly the hugest National Review fan, but that's more of a right-leaning outlet. And I'm like, okay, why isn't this New York Times covering it? Why is it the National Review? So let's read. One of Justice Amy Coney Barrett's sisters was targeted with a hoax bomb threat last weekend, police in Charleston, South Carolina revealed. On Saturday, an employee of the Charleston County Sheriff's Department received a politically charged email concerning Amanda Coney Williams that claimed there was a potential explosive device in her mailbox. It was seemingly written by an anti-Israel advocate. Using a 1x8-inch threaded galvanized pipe, end caps, a kitchen timer, some wires, metal clips, and homemade black powder, I've constructed a pipe bomb, which I recently placed in Amy Coney Barrett's sister's mailbox at her home, the email stated. The device's detonation will be triggered as soon as the mailbox is next opened. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Oh, those Trump supporters, right? Because that sounds like your average Trump supporter. Free Palestine. So you bring up, look at how the left has used violence and intimidation against justices. And this guy goes, oh, yeah, but what about the terrible right-wingers that are doing it? And then you're like, oh, you mean this left-winger? That's the incident you're talking about? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I got that wrong. I was completely wrong about that. I wonder why people like Barrett and Roberts and other justices that are having their lives threatened and the lives of their family, I wonder why. I wonder if that would influence them. And by the way, it's not just that. Any wacko could do anything. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about wackos doing that in the same environment where people were blatantly breaking the law, protesting outside their homes, in the same environment where those people were basically being celebrated as heroes because everyone with cultural power is saying, oh, these justices are evil and horrible, whether it be over the Dobbs decision or over the Palestinian decisions. Nonetheless, back to Data Republican and this list and all of this doxing and swatting of right-wingers. There's a certain level of success, notoriety that you achieve as you become bigger. So Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire, compared to someone like me that's way down here, compared to someone who's not a streamer, but's just a random person sort of interested in politics that posts things to their X account and their Facebook page. They're like here, then me, then like someone like Shapiro. Or it is true that the further up you get with influence, or maybe it's even beyond that, you run for a public office, you have to accept that you're going to get more ire from the people that politically disagree with you. The more power you get, the more influence you get, the more that the other side will hate you. And that's true on the other side as well. If your crazy cousin that's a lefty shows up to your Thanksgiving saying dumb shit, you might just laugh at them. But if that same shit's being said by Chuck Schumer or by Kamala Harris, you might be like, hey, right? So this makes sense. But at what point do people say, you know what, it's not worth it? At what point do people say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to enter into the foray anymore. I'm not going to publicly voice my opinions because I'm going to get attacked. I'm going to get threats. This is where the sort of phenomenon of the silent Trump voter first began. All of these institutions that controlled our narrative, these cultural institutions, Hollywood, the entertainment industry, athletes, academia, the people that were running social media, the people in the media, most of the wealthy folks that were speaking up, not just donating money, but that were speaking up, would be very open with their beliefs that they were pro-Democrat, but condemn Trump. I've talked about this quite frequently. I talked about the story of the wedding I went to recently, where this woman who sort of knows my wife and found out that I was a conservative who had a YouTube show comes up to me at the wedding and all drunkenly and starts shit with me. Well, you're okay, but your supporters are all fucking stupid and blah, blah, blah. I can't stand Trump and blah, blah, blah. Then I extricate myself from the situation because I don't want to have a dust up some sort of argument at a friend's wedding, and they approach me another time. This time while I'm talking to two other friends that are legitimate Democrats that didn't vote for Trump. And she's giving me and them the business. That shit happens in my life all the time. If you're a Trump supporter, if you're a Republican, you're supposed to keep your head down and not talk about it. But it's completely socially acceptable to go out there and be a Democrat and be a Trump hater. Or now a Musk hater. Completely socially acceptable. That's where we've been. I know I should have debated her, says Zen. Now we have and what happened is, and there were attacks, there were tons of videos of people wearing MAGA hats getting the shit beat out of them. Heck, we even had Jussie Smollett. Remember the hoax, what it was designed to do was to encourage rage and violence against Trump supporters, white Trump supporters. That's why he made up a story. They beat me while they wore MAGA hats and yelled, "This is MAGA country." That's what was going on. And there were many instances where people were wearing MAGA hats were getting attacked, getting their property vandalized. And the left saw that as a victory. And it was, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. Because what happened was people were like, okay, I'll keep my shit to myself, but when I go to the voting booth, you can't see what I'm doing there. Now we've seen that that's tide starting to turn. We see entertainers. We even see people in the rap industry, actors that are African American, that are vocal. Yeah, I support athletes. Yeah, I support Trump. That's significant. Not because their opinion matters more than anyone else's opinion, because it doesn't, but because it shows that this sort of cultural, you can't, if you're in these industries, it'll be death to your career, particularly if you're black. You can't do that. You want to be an Uncle Tom? But when it comes to the people that have a voice, the people that want to say, hey, I want to talk about this stuff publicly, whether it be you just wanting to post things on your Facebook or X account, whether it be someone like me who's a streamer but not big time that wants to talk about these sorts of things, or whether it be someone going up the chain that gets more influential like a Ben Shapiro. The increased intensity and the threats can have an effect at silencing people, and that matters. I don't really care from the perspective of there are people that will hate me for my opinions. That's completely reasonable and fine. I don't mind that. That's fine. I won't complain about that. But at what point would someone like me, if my address starts getting blared out there, if they start putting pictures of my children and where my children go to school, at what point when I say, yeah, this shit ain't worth it? If I start getting swatted on a normal basis, then what? How far would you take it? Yeah, I have talked to my local police. In fact, fortunately for me, my wife's father is a police officer. So, but at what point? Because I got to be honest with you, I really do. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like to hear this, but this is just the truth. I love my country. Everything I say on here, I believe. I truly do. I think that my opinions will be better for this country, culturally, politically. This is who I am. What you see is what you get. Yeah, Chuck, I've said that for a long time. The kooks better hope people like Rob prevail among the populace. I want bleeding Kansas. I mean that figuratively, of course. Listen, I've said for a long time, if I was a lefty, I would want someone like me. Because if the right ever decides we're going to play the same game as the left when it comes to political violence, that's going to be a very dark place for this country. Lefties think that this healthcare guy was really bad and Luigi Mangione was right to kill him. What if righties think that the person indoctrinating children about trans ideology is really bad and they decide to have a Luigi Mangione? What if they decide instead of just boycotting Bud Light, they're going to firebomb Bud Light factories? What if they're going to vandalize everyone that drives a Ford? Then what happens? People like me are trying to prevent that from occurring. Ironically, that's sort of what Trump represents. Because if they use corruption to prevent someone like Trump from winning or prevent someone like Trump from achieving his agenda, the person that comes after Trump will be far more right wing and far more authoritarian. Yeah, I oppose accelerationism. Yeah. Well, the less you have to lose. I understand there's truth in that as well. But I'm still trying to convince those people they still have a lot to lose and that it's not effective and there are better strategies. But can at some point could you blame me? I love this country, but you know what I love more than that? My family. And you could say that makes me a coward. I don't care. I would be willing to fight for my country as far as like if there were foreign invader and the military's coming into my community to wipe out my the Koreans attack or something. I've convinced some left-wing people in real life, yeah. Yeah, God, family, country. That's right. Less than 3, you're absolutely right. Less than 3. Do you mind if I say who who you your other name? Do you mind that? I don't know if less than 3 minds that, so I won't. I don't think he would mind. But less than 3 also was a conservative YouTube streamer. Um, Aircraft Sparky. Okay, he was Aircraft Sparky. Let me ask you this, Aircraft Sparky. If you all of a sudden hit the jackpot, right? Like you won Powerball and you like after taxes got $500 million. Would you stream political content anymore? Because I got to be honest, I don't know that I would. I might still occasionally. But you know what I would do? I would pay off all my debts. I would help out friends and family and neighbors. I would help out my local community. And I'd buy an RV and I would spend every damn day that I could with my wife and my son. That's what I would do. So if I'm working 80, 90 hours a week, and I'm streaming it as a hobby, and yeah, I make some money. But all of a sudden, my family's getting threats. Not me, but my family. By the way, this hasn't happened. My family hasn't been threatened. But if that happens, if they're vandalizing my vehicle, if they're threatening my livelihood that I provide for my family, at what point do I say, yeah, this shit ain't worth it? Let's say you have more to lose. Let's say you're wealthy. If you're independently wealthy, like Elon Musk, why would you ever get involved in politics? Unless you're going to get involved on the side of the establishment, on the side of the cultural dominance. But why would you ever push back against it? Make yourself persona non grata. Brock Van Wagner, thanks for the $5, says, what are the odds the shit talker from yesterday will actually call in? About 2%. They won't call in or join the chat because I offered for them to call in. So they're going to pretend that they weren't able to. And then we'll see them in a chat tomorrow or some other day that I stream saying, oh, I wasn't available. Sorry. That's the truth. The intimidation, the going after people, it does have a cumulative effect. To give yourself government contracts and make yourself even richer. What if he gets assassinated, HN? Will you be saying that? Was it worth it then? Going, the richest man in the world, according to you, he's only involved in government to get more money for himself. But he's made himself probably top 5 most hated person in the world amongst the establishment lefties. Was it worth it then? He tried to gain another $1 billion, but they killed him. Ha ha ha. HN has no empathy. Remember, now HN says, this is HN's argument. Hey, if they kill Elon, so what? I don't give a shit. I don't have empathy. He learned that from me. How did he learn it from me? Because he called in to debate me, and I left the video up. And then my editor edited out the section that he debated me and put that clip up. So, tomato, tomato. He would celebrate and cheer the murder of Elon Musk, the assassination of Elon Musk, and I put a video up of him calling in. Same thing. Neither of us have empathy. Well, Bud says because maybe Elon thinks it's worth it. His kids have a future too, I guess. Sure. And there are some people that say that. But at some point, he might just say, you know what? It's not worth the threats to myself and my family. I'm out. I'm just going to take my money and hang out with my family. I said this when Kavanaugh went through what he went through. Why would you ever accept a nomination to the Supreme Court if you're a conservative? They called Kavanaugh a gang rapist. They wrote articles about how he shouldn't be allowed to continue to coach his daughter's basketball team. His family had to sit in the gallery while he cried about how his life was being destroyed. And why? Because Democrats were mad about Roe v. Wade. Ray Gay House? Or Rage House, I guess, Says, isn't this where for evil to flourish, good men need to do nothing, quote, comes into play? Just let the leftists go nuts. Not saying to point a target on me. No offense taken. I'm not saying do nothing. But at what point, what are you doing? You have an anonymous account, which I fully respect. What skin are you putting in the game? You running for office? You putting yourself out there? Just curious. It's easy. It's easy when you're not the one being targeted. Like, yeah, they should still do it. They should still do it. Well, Angel, people may fight back. Thanks, Kamala. Loves my content. Appreciate it. I asked this before. I don't care, HN, any lefty in the chat, or anyone else. What do you think the chances are that we get through 4 years of Trump's administration without another assassination attempt on Trump or a high-level Republican or member of his cabinet? What do you think the chances are? Do you think there's let's ask it this way. Do you think there's a better than not chance that we see another assassination attempt? You taking that position on Trump's team if you know that? A lot of people will. And a lot of people will because they'll say, well, I believe in this. And a lot of people will because they'll say it will advance my career, my political career, etc. But could you blame someone if they said, you know what? I don't need this shit. I don't need it. HN says there was assassination attempts every day, even on Biden. Prove it. Let's just, every day there was an assassination attempt on Biden. Okay, let's go September 3rd, 2022. Go ahead. Show me the assassination attempt that day. Go for it. There are assassination attempts every day on even Biden. Okay, I just picked one day at random. In fact, hell, I'll give you the whole month. Give me the assassination attempt that occurred on Biden on September 2022. Should be easy. And there was 30 of them, right? At least one happens every day. Look at the laws on protesting outside of abortion clinics. Isn't the spirit, correct me if I'm wrong, but the spirit of the law is because there was hostility and violence previously, and this is such an important right to women, that that overrides people's free speech rights. Because surely you should have the right to say to anyone getting an abortion, that's murder. You should have that right. That's free speech. But you can't say that so close to an abortion clinic. You can't even pray. Another new account for $5 says, if you leave, the lefties on YouTube win. If Trump quits after the first attempt, we'd be in World War III now. If Elon quit, etc. Sometimes you have to take the job. True. But the point is, not everyone will. And I would have a hard time blaming those that don't. And so if these sorts of threats, attacks, etc. are allowed to go with impunity, they will have a cumulative effect. So isn't that the argument with well, you can't protest so close within so many feet of an abortion clinic because violence has been done before and it intimidates these women from exercising a very important right of theirs? I think that law is dog shit, but it is precedent. Congress needs to pass a law that if you get caught for political reasons using violence, property destruction, swatting, those sorts of things, it needs to be a terrorism enhancement. In other words, if you destroy someone's Ford because they cheated on you, okay, that's property destruction, vandalism. If you destroy someone's Tesla to make a political opinion, that's terrorism. That's what we've accepted with the abortion law, right? Same thing. Your right to free speech and having a political opinion is under attack by grotesque violence and intimidation. And so we will make special enhancements, just like we have with abortion centers. So the next time someone vandalizes a Tesla, throw their ass in prison for 10 years. Don't just send a citation to their home. Break into their house with armed agents, wielding guns, pointing them at people's families, dragging them out like they did the people that protested abortion centers. Give them the same treatment. See how long it continues then. Not my standard, their standard. That's almost every lefty. Name a lefty that's against those anti-abortion activists getting locked up. Name me one that was against it. That's their standard. Do I think that attacking random Tesla owners is a winning strategy optically? No, I don't. I think it'll hurt them optically. But I think it'll help them with their immediate goal of harming Tesla's stock. That's the consequences that must happen. It's the same with swatting. Swatting should be attempted murder. If you swat someone for political beliefs, you should get an attempted murder charge with a terrorism enhancement. You should be looking at a minimum of like 20 years. I'm dead serious. That should be the punishment for swatting. Lock up 4 or 5 people for that, and I bet the shit stops. People not wanting to buy Tesla because they don't like Elon's political opinions is absolutely fine. That's America, baby. That's fine. But part of the reasons that Tesla stock's dropping is because people will be afraid to buy Teslas. Because everybody knows now that you're a target if you have a Tesla. It's been announced over and over again. And the left is tongue-in-cheek about it. Let's get to some posts. Here's Anonymous. You know, that Anonymous that's supposedly fighting the powerful. We said, stop burning Teslas. What the heck? Come on, guys, please. Sad face. Think of the poor investors. This isn't legal. Smiley face, fingers together. Cool. Isn't that cool? Let's get some more. Rick Wilson, if you watch my short today, you should be watching my shorts. Real quick, let's get to the super chat. Harbagnar, thank you, man. Always a great fan of the show. Thank you. Always appreciated. Says, Rob, I love your channel. You're the most solid and honest right-wing perspective out there. Phenomenal debater. I'd love to embarrass myself by debating you on some topic I may disagree with you on, but there isn't much. Cheers. We'll find something, man. Thank you. I really appreciate the support. I really do. Thanks for the kind words, too. Yeah, light mode. Deal with it. Rick Wilson, anti-Trumper from the Lincoln Project, says, kill Tesla, save the country. Little Cybertruck on fire there. Elon has a weak spot. Attack. Nice, right? I showed you it the other week. Destiny saying based. Let's do a little secular talk. Kyle Kulinski, right? Let's just go through his timeline, shall we? Jack of trades, showering with Rob. Shh, my wife will get jealous. Let's see what secular talk thinks about all this. Carl Salesman slaps roof, Tesla explodes. Superman, Tesla factory, burns it down, walks away whistling. Making fun of Rittenhouse with Elon Musk. There's Tim Walz.
I added Tesla to it. I was saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, and take out, just telling you.
Imagine if conservatives were firebombing Bud Light and attacking people that had Bud Light memorabilia, vandalizing their property. And then J.D. Vance would have came out and said, yeah, Bud Light stocks. Imagine what they would have said. Gaza, not terrorism. Tesla, terrorism. Making fun of that. It's over and over. Don't worry, we're going to find more here. Garrett Link, thank you for the $5. Says Kyle Kulinski is low tier and has lost his mind. You should try to debate Sam Cedar since he's ducking a debate with Andrew. They won't debate me. I would love to debate Sam Cedar. Andy Knows, fantastic reporter, says Antifa and far-left violent extremists are sharing a guide on how to use modified incendiary devices to burn down Tesla vehicles and other cars in targeted domestic terror attacks meant to intimidate Elon Musk and Trump. The Justice Department says it's treating the string of violent attacks on Tesla property, including shootings and firebombings, as domestic terrorism. The suspects apprehended so far have not been charged with terror-related offenses. Anarchist Federation News says, don't use Molotovs. Some notes on safely burning Teslas or other cars. The Philly Anti-Capitalist, Anti-Authoritarian News. It's explaining to you how Molotovs could get you in trouble. Then it gives you a list of alternatives that you could have. This is on top of the list being put publicly by people of where all Tesla owners live and the people that own Teslas. Now, I remember when Chris Wray said Antifa is just an idea. It's not an organization. Now we have lefties like that group, anti-fascist, anarchist, etc., publicly instructing people on the best ways to firebomb Teslas. If it was the Proud Boys putting this shit out, you guarantee the FBI be knocking on their doors already. If Pam Bondi and Kash Patel don't go after these people as aggressively as possible, they are utterly and complete failures. And the Trump administration will collapse. You need only go to any of those posts that I show you's comment sections, Kyle Kulinski, Rick Wilson's, to see post after post after post after post after post of left-wingers with pronouns in their bios and Ukrainian flags in their bios saying, based, good. Yeah, that's good. Attack those Teslas. Attack those dealerships. And by the way, you can see that their whole climate change agenda was bullshit from the get-go. I agree. Patel and Bondi won't do anything. Lawfare. No more free speech for people who aren't alt-right. You see? Me saying, yeah, the people that are actively telling you to burn down Teslas and giving you instructions on how to burn them down is a bad thing. And we need to go after the organizations that are facilitating these terror attacks. That's anti-free speech, unless you're alt-right. So I guess what HN's saying here is that only alt-right people are against firebombing Teslas. HN, are you for firebombing Teslas? Yes or no? HN, are you for firebombing Teslas? Yes or no? Just come out and say it. HN says no, he's not for. So then you're alt-right, correct? You're admitting you're alt-right because you said me criticizing people that are giving instructions on how to firebomb Teslas and saying organizations like groups that are facilitating that should be aggressively pursued by the FBI. You said that means no free speech except for the alt-right. So then you're alt-right based on your own definition, right, HN? How's it feel to be an alt-righter? Do you also feel that alt-righters are Nazis? No, you said, and I quote, this is what you said. Quote, lawfare, no more free speech for people who are not alt-right. That would imply when I was criticizing people talking about firebombing Teslas, that you're saying that all of those people are not, the only people not doing that are alt-right. You're saying that's not you, so you're alt-right? Also, I never suggested prosecuting Kyle Kulinski. I didn't say that. I was talking specifically about the people instructing people on how to firebomb. And I'm not even saying they should be prosecuted. I'm making a more general point about the ones that are actually engaged in terrorism. Quote me where I was calling for the prosecution of Kyle Kulinski. Everyone that's listening, did anybody hear me say prosecute Kyle Kulinski? Anybody hear me say that? Can you give me the timestamp of when I said prosecute Kyle Kulinski? Interesting. Kyle Kulinski's welcome. He could post every day. My standard of free speech would be no problem. I don't even mind lefties putting out, there's some difficulty in giving instructions on how to create bombs and stuff. That's a little different. But in general, they should be allowed to do that. What I'm talking about is the people that are actively planning to firebomb people's personal property and then carrying that out. That's what I'm talking about. HN's going back in time to find out where I said prosecute Kyle Kulinski. There you go. I'll make you a deal, HN. If you can't find me saying prosecute Kyle Kulinski, you're banned from the channel forever. But if you can find me saying to prosecute Kyle Kulinski, then I will offer you an apology and allow you to have 15 minutes uninterrupted on my channel today to talk about whatever you want. How's that sound? Fair deal? Well, if you're rewinding the stream and you can't hear it, then we'll just assume that you've agreed to those conditions. Hell, I'll do it for you. Let's go back and hear if I said prosecute Kyle Kulinski. Nah, actually, I'm having trouble with StreamYard to be able to do that. Now, I remember when people were banned on social media for saying they thought the 2020 election was stolen. I remember when they were banned for saying that they thought that the virus could have came from a lab in Wuhan. I remember when NGOs and government entities, by the way, a independent report agency today put out that 57 government agencies were involved with the mass censorship. Let's see if I can find that. Oops, sorry, wrong screen. From John Solomon, Biden-era censorship initiatives involved 90 agencies, independent reports conclude. As the Trump administration battles the courts over the president's far-reaching orders and animus towards individual judges, earning a rebuke from Roberts, the Biden administration's 4 years of alleged censorship via big tech, collusion, and coercion, sporadically blocked in court, continues to unravel. 90 federal agencies and components were involved in 57 distinct Biden-era censorship initiatives through direct actions, policies, or rulemakings, partnerships, and grants, according to the report by the Media Research Center, whose prior documentation of news rating service NewsGuard alleged bias played a role in the subsequent congressional and agency investigations. While the initiatives happen behind closed doors, readers should view them in the context of the Biden's bully pulpit, MRC said, which promoted censorship of political opponents, called platforms un-American for declining to contract with censorship outfits, and famously accused Facebook owner Meta of killing people for insufficient censorship. Now, to be clear, I don't want Kyle Kulinski censored. I think that he could go ahead and keep putting, and Rick Wilson as well, and all of them. I think it's great that they're showing us who the Democrats really are. I hope that they become the face of the Democrat Party, just like Destiny. Everyone accused me of when I asked the people that were vying for the head of the DNC, were going on Destiny's show, and I said, do you support Destiny's views on Trump supporters are fucking around finding out if they get murdered if they go to a Trump rally? Do you support that? Do you support his view that he said the worst thing that could have happened was that bullet not killing Trump? Do you support that? And people said, oh, you're trying to get Destiny censored. No, quite the contrary. I want the Democrats to acknowledge, yeah, I heard him say that, but still agree that he's a useful political tool. That's which they would do, which is fine. By the way, Democrats would do this. If Jim Jordan sat down with Nick Fuentes, do you think that Destiny and his supporters would say, perfectly reasonable, we're not going to judge? Do you think they would do that? Of course not. I don't want them censored. But why should my standard matter? The Democrat standard was, oh, people are saying things that we think could lead to violence, like questioning the 2020 election. Therefore, they should be censored off social media. Why should I continually have to fight community guideline strikes on places like TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch when I've never once called or even alluded to any sort of political violence? But because I would say things like, actually, I think this virus came from a lab in Wuhan, I think that's most likely, I would get community guide strikes over and over and over. And they said, yeah, that the Democrats said that's good. They voted for people that actively push those disinformation censorship efforts. So why shouldn't they be held to the same standards that they wanted for us? Right? In fact, if you couldn't question the 2020 election because it was dangerous because of January 6th, Wouldn't that then, if we're going to take that to the same logical extension, then you can't criticize Elon Musk because that led to the firebombing of Tesla dealerships, right? Now, that would be absurd. Imagine saying that. Imagine saying, wait a minute, you're saying we can't question Elon's work at Doge? You're saying we can't question that? We can't say that we think it's corrupt? We can't say that we think it's damaging? And they would be right. That would be asinine. That would be absolutely asinine. If the federal government was putting their thumb on the scale, which was causing places like YouTube, X, and other places to censor those sorts, I would say that's outrageous. But that's what happened with people like me and millions of others, because theoretically it could lead to violence. Me questioning the results of the 2020 election, which I was actually very benign in doing so, me questioning where the virus came from, the argument that that could ipso facto down the road lead to someone committing violence, that's far more tenuous than Kyle Kulinski putting up Superman burning down a Tesla dealership and smiling. HN says, okay, Rob, I apologize. You were saying people have vandalized Teslas. I got confused because you talked about Kyle right after that. Should I ban him? Should I ban him for that bullshit? That was our deal, right? If I was wrong, I'd let him come on for 15 minutes. I'm not going to ban him. You see? Now, personally, not only do I not want Kyle Kulinski prosecuted, I don't want him removed off social media. But again, why should my standard apply? The standard's already been set by the Biden administration, by the policies of Twitter, the policies of YouTube, the policies of Twitch, the policies of Facebook that said we ban people for saying things that we think could down the road lead to violence. Well, far more direct call to violence is Kyle Kulinski showing these Tesla dealerships burning. And yet you could guarantee that if he was censored on all of these social media platforms, him and his audience would say, oh my gosh, this is authoritarianism. That's what they would say. You know it. Trump is anti-First Amendment. How dare he? How dare he do this? That's what they would be saying. We all know it. Remember, though, Proud Boys terror group, Antifa and all those groups, we don't, they're just an idea. They're not groups of people. I mean, they have websites where they talk about all of this stuff. A couple other X posts worth putting. I think Jesse Kelly's phenomenal. I really enjoy his posts. I don't agree with him on everything. There's a person who's more right-wing and hostile than me. And he's not even as bad as the people we're talking about. Or I don't want to say as bad, as extreme. I suspect SCOTUS got the message when the communists sent an assassin to blow Brett Kavanaugh's head off. I doubt SCOTUS will stop the activism. Then we'll see if Trump 2.0 is really going to be a historic figure or just be a guy who got beaten by the system. And then he says, here's a black pill for you. The communists are going to assassinate a Republican. They got one assassin outside of Kavanaugh's house. Trump got shot in the head. They're not going to miss every time. There's one coming. It's true. Now, there's a difference. Any insane person, every side, every supporter has, or ideology, politician, political group has insane, crazy people. You could take the most milquetoast, run-of-the-mill centrist, and they got some extreme people that like him. The difference is not just will some person take an incredibly heinous action, it's the likelihood that it occurs because the fever pitch that so many people on that side produce. I had people today talking about the Tesla thing, they were responding to me saying things like this. Oh, you mean like the Republicans with Bud Light? I'm sorry, I don't remember Bud Light factories being burnt to the ground. I don't remember property destruction of Bud Light drinkers being a popular thing. I don't remember prominent figures celebrating and nodding to that violence. I don't remember people putting websites on the best way to attack Bud Light drinkers or the home of all Bud Light drinkers. But that's how they truly feel. Now, here's another black pill for you. Just like with cancel culture, remember, the right in general is basically didn't give a shit about trying to cancel other people. They didn't for years. Live and let live. Oh, this company endorsed something we don't like. Oh, well, this actor said something we don't like. Fine, we won't go see their movie, but that's it. But the left over and over and over in a one-sided battle decided they were going to go through Media Matters and other places, and they were going to go after people's sponsors, and they were mass campaigns to get people fired and going through their yearbooks and blah, 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 blah. Let's cancel. And eventually the right said, okay, we'll play that game too. And now the left goes, oh, I thought you were against cancel culture. The right was against it. And then you guys kept playing the game, and so the right said, fine, we'll play the game too. The same is true of the incredible hostility that we see from these lefties. Inevitably, enough right-wingers will see this, and they'll say, we're going to start doing the same shit. How many times would your Tesla get vandalized before you say, you know what? If there's a car company I don't like, or if, the politician running on the other side that I don't like owns a company, I'm going to attack people that do business with that company. I don't want to see that. Now, you bring this up, and people like HN, when I talked last week about left-wing violence, says, but what about January 6th? The guy that was supposed to call in tonight to debate Captain My Captain, by the way, is my prediction coming true or what? Won't show up, won't even show up in the chat. I wouldn't be surprised if he's here right now watching, but just won't type anything, so that tomorrow, when he comes on my stream, says, oh, I'm sorry, I was busy, I wasn't unable to be there. I couldn't. That's exactly what's going to... But what did he say yesterday? January 6th. January 6th. That's all they got. And of course, as you see with HN, they don't know shit about January 6th. Now, to be honest, I was going to talk about some other things, but I can't help myself. HN, you're such a good sport. Let's watch some of my newest video that my great editor, Black Elk, put out today. How about that? Just so you can get an idea of so many of these people. Let's take a look, shall we, HN? It's going to be a lot of fun. Yay! Let's do it. The title of the video is Troll Gets Quick Smackdown on January 6th Debate. Excellent title, my friend Black Elk. Of course, because of the title of this video, that's representative, apparently, to our friend HN in the chat here, that I have no empathy, and so he doesn't care if someone murders Elon Musk, is what he said, because the title of this video. So, tomato, tomato, right? Me putting this video up and having the word troll in it, and HN having no sympathy if Elon Musk gets assassinated. Same thing. Let's hear some of these incredible arguments. Am I intuiting this incorrectly, that you would think January 6th is the single most important day of our country in, like, say, the last 10 years?
Yeah, probably.
I think I would have tried to do a little more research if I thought that it was that important. All right. So.
Okay, cool.
January 6th was more violence than all of the Black Lives Matter votes. That's your claim? Guy says, my 11-year-old got in more trouble for scratching his nuts in class. Hopefully he'll hear you read this. Hello, 11-year-old. You should probably be doing things better than listening to me. Hopefully, Guy, it's because your 11-year-old's like in the room with you and could hear this as opposed to he's watching me. Because trust me, if you're 11, I am not saying anything that would be entertaining to you. I know that because I have a 4-year-old and I also don't say anything that's entertaining to him. It's not true. We played with Play-Doh a lot today, and he was a big fan of that. All right, let's keep going here.
Yep.
Okay, in which way
Or
are
it
you?
was worse.
Okay, now let's just start here right out of the gate. The impetus for this call was his claim, HN's claim, that in all of the totality of Black Lives Matter, there was less violence than the one day of January 6th. There was more violence on January 6th. That's what he said in the chat. I said, would you like to call in and discuss that? That's why he called in. So let's right out of the gate. I ask him that question.
Yep.
January 6th was more violence than all of the Black Lives Matter votes. That's your claim?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. There you have it. Okay. In which way
Or
are
it
you?
was worse.
Okay. When you said more, so you're already admitting that you're incorrect about that. Because more would imply a quantity.
Yeah, well, I mean, so there was probably more people that were injured and hurt during the Black Lives Matter protests.
Okay,
But-
so would you say, let's just go real quick through. More people killed, Black Lives Matter or January 6th?
So there were a lot of people that were killed during BLM by like not actually attending the protests. They were like outside agitators. So if we're including that, then
More people killed,
And,
Black Lives, even if we take out the outside By the way, how do you define that? So there's a Black Lives Matter protest. You say that someone was an outside agitator. Give me an example of that.
like somebody who didn't care about the protests but used it as an excuse to do other stuff.
Yeah, well, you could say that about any sort of protest movement. There could be a lot of people that are there for disparate reasons. For example, just because I go to the January 6th protest because I feel the election was stolen doesn't mean that I'm co-signing to the people that are there to engage in acts of violence for other reasons, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So what would you, but even if we accept that, so how many people do you think that were Black Lives Matter, legitimate, the real Black Lives Matter, that were either killed or killed other people during the protest? Is that number higher or lower than the amount of people that died in January 6th?
We say it's higher, but not by a lot.
Okay, so quantity, when you said that there was more violence January 6th than all the Black Lives Matter, so far we got deaths, not true. How about the amount of people injured? BLM or January 6th?
I probably BLM, but not by much again.
You're wrong.
Just a little bit.
It's overwhelmingly. It's overwhelming. How about just law enforcement injured? January 6th or Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, this is one main one that I was thinking about, and I would say that January 6th was way worse for law enforcement.
That's not true. For example, you get the idea. Now I know that our buddy HN, who I did not ban, I know that he probably bolted out. But you check that video out. I'll put the link. Check it out. Check it out. It's a good video. Thank you, Black Elk, for putting that together. Love it. That's the quality of people that we're arguing against. Again, there are arguments to be had against my position. For example, one could say, well, as an individual event, January 6th was probably the worst for various reasons, including it was against the Capitol, which these other incidents were. But yes, certainly when it comes to the number of people affected, whether it be killed, injured, etc., clearly over hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of Black Lives Matter protests, those numbers are going to be higher. But no, that's not the argument HN made. HN made the argument, no. January 6th had more people injured. January 6th had more people killed. January 6th had more law enforcement injured. I'm pro-life. I am not 100% for abolition. So, HN very upset that video was put up. Sorry. My channel. So unfortunately, the debate didn't occur because person didn't call in. Do any? Never mind. I'm not going to say that. I had a DM with someone I was going to talk about, not sensational or anything, but I should keep my mouth shut just because. Just because. Just because. Have you noticed how quick all of these courts are to jump in when it comes to protecting the establishment institutions? How many of them jumped in when, you were being forced to be locked down, when you were being forced to have vaccine mandates? There were some TROs, but nowhere near to the level that we see now against Trump. It's almost like protecting the establishment is the function of most of these federal judges. He was mad that they put troll in the title, and he also claims that he said that he would only call in if I didn't put the video up, which is asinine because I never saw that. Second, I would have never agreed to it because third, literally every live stream I have, unless it gets taken down or I'm forced to take it down for terms of service, I leave up. How do I feel about impeaching those low-level judges? Stupid. One, unless they legitimately, if you could find direct laws that they're breaking or corruption, etc., fine, impeach away. It's going to be difficult to do that. Some of them are just activists and they're doing what they're doing. But even if you think it would warrant impeachment, it's just going to be purely symbolic and accomplish absolutely nothing because you'll never get 67 votes in the Senate. How are you going to get over a dozen Democrats to vote for this? Stupid. Completely symbolic. But let me blackpill you even further. So there are people that are saying that. See, for example, I think Chip Roy said this. You see, impeachment, it won't do anything. It's just symbolic. So let's talk about defunding many of these federal courts or passing a law that says they don't have jurisdiction. Because for that, we wouldn't need 67. We only need 51. You want to hear the ultimate black pill? There ain't 51 votes in the Senate for that. There's not. The establishment Republicans ain't going along with that shit. They're secretly pleased. You mean to tell me the same Republicans that are going to continue to fund USAID all of a sudden will take unprecedented action to defund courts that are trying to prevent Trump from defunding it? You think? The same that let this system go for years, whose families are also connected and getting so much of this government money? There'll be a lot of talk of norms and we can't do this sort of stuff and tit for tat and things of that. There is zero chance that legislation like that passes the Senate. Nor do I think that Trump should ignore the courts. I disagree. He shouldn't. Two things need to happen. Pro-abolition would mean no abortion ever for any case whatsoever. Zero. Even to save the woman's life. That would be abolition. Complete zero abortion ever. Always should be illegal. Pro-life would be that you prioritize the living. That's the difference. So the first thing that needs to happen is We need to be introspective. Although it's easy to say this and it's difficult to solve this, the big problem lies with the Republican voters, because you will continue to vote for Mitch McConnell. You will continue to vote for Langford. You will continue to vote for Dan Crenshaw. You will continue to vote for Lindsey Graham. Or rather, you won't get out and vote in the primaries. And so this is what we're left with. Ignoring the court rulings, I wouldn't straight up ignore them. I would be for appealing and cleverly, like the plane not turning around, things like that. That's one thing. But once the Supreme Court weighs in, and if they disagree with Trump, he has to listen to them. There are circumstances where forcing a woman to continue to be in labor severely jeopardizes her life. How close are we to a SCOTUS review decision? I don't know. I think it'll be within a month. Now, continuing though with this train of thought. So you have to convince people that voting in the primary is equally, if not more important than voting in the general election. An actual vote for people that will do what Congress. We're in this position because Congress abdicated or cheered on this corruption and their authority for so long. The reason that the bureaucratic state has so much power, which rests in the office of the executive, is largely because Congress has abdicated their responsibility. Congress signed 1,700-page funding bills that they've never read, that sends all this money to these bureaucracies that then get to pick and choose how this bureaucracy and where that money gets spent. It's overwhelmingly spent on ridiculous left-wing causes, going after populists, making huge, terrible decisions around the globe, driving up debt, inflation, etc., because Congress refuses to do their job. So we need to vote better people in Congress. That's number one. The other thing that can happen, and I would love to hear someone tell me where I'm wrong on this. I am the only person I have heard in the country saying this. The only one. And I'm looking into this. Start applying to be a non-governmental organization. All of you. Don't do anything illegal. Don't do anything corrupt. Find an issue that you really believe in. I personally can't stand disinformation. So maybe I'll create a non-governmental organization to fight disinformation. And we'll be fighting the lies of the Democrats. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. We'll be fighting lies that we see that are prevalent in our establishment institutions, including the mainstream media and governments around the world. And if that just so happens to be that the majority of those damaging lies come from democratic institutions, so be it. And so maybe I'll create an NGO. Maybe you'll create an NGO, Sparky, on women in labor, helping pregnant women. And Sparky's NGO won't be helping them to have access to abortion. It'll be helping them make the decision to not murder their baby and to provide them with resources and to be preaching abstinence and monogamous relationships and not procreating before marriage. Ben's going to start an NGO. Thanks so much for $2 to shut down Feet Finder websites. There you go. I'm sorry, Inversity's right. Lies that threaten our democracy. Yeah. Start these NGOs. Get them in the process now. And then when Trump's told, hey, you have to give this money. You have to give it out to these NGOs. Then start divvying it out by the billions to these conservatives. If he loses these court decisions, then the precedent will be set. When the Democrat gets in office, they'll say, well, we want to stop this. You can't. Precedent's been set. You can't do that. Now, maybe they'll ignore the courts. We'll see. Or maybe the court will just be blatantly corrupt. But allow the American people to see what's going on then. truth is, what the Trump administration can do is outline the truth of things like the Epstein files, which they're doing a terrible job of. They can outline the corruption of the January 6th committee and all the corrupt actions that occurred there within. They can outline evidence they think that they have, that they've claimed, of corruption in the 2020 election. They can outline the corruption of people like Dr. Fauci with COVID. They can outline the corruption of places like Ukraine and politicians that have been involved with Ukraine. They can outline the corruption of places like Act Blue and prosecute the people that have engaged in illegal corruption. Outline the corruption of Russiagate. That's what they can do. We'll talk about Harry Sisson in a minute. Make the case to the American people, the truthful case, of how corrupt so many of these institutions are to win the next elections. All right, as we're wrapping up here, what do I think about Harry Sisson? Haven't read much of the details. I'm going to tell you the story as I think that it's occurred. Someone tell me in the chat if I'm wrong. Harry Sisson's this left-wing, I believe he was paid, I don't know if that's been proven or not, but by Democrat institutions, whatever, PACs or what have. He's one of these young left-wing content creators that you see always posting on X, to the point of just being basically a total shill, just a complete and total partisan hack, much like the Krasenstein brothers. Just not much substance there, but that's who it is. Okay, fine, great. I believe the scandal goes something like this. He, as a young man, was messaging various women saying basically, I want to take you out for wine and to have sex with you, and you're the only person I would be talking to like this. And he was doing that with multiple women. I don't give a shit. It's not a crime. Made women feel bad. One, it shows that most of these lefties that claimed, just like Destiny, the master of consent Destiny, remember that's part of the story, that he was talking to Pixie and was like, oh, here's the deal with consent, and I know about this, and I talk about this stuff a lot. And it turns out they're scumbags. Right? That's true of Harry Sisson. Just how many male feminists will we find this out about? But it's not a crime. And on the other hand, you hate to say it, but it's true. It's worth pointing out. You really thought you're some lady that's messaging Harry Sisson and you're like, oh, he's just for me. It's no one else. I'm just some rando that started talking to him on Snapchat, but I'm the only one. My feelings are hurt that there were others. I mean, come on. I don't even care if he was asking for nudes, if they were of legal age. Yeah, I mean, Sparky says, it's my experience that many creators are kind of garbage. Connor's a great example. I mean, it's honestly, I've talked about this many times before. Is it that to be a big content creator, you have to be garbage? Or that once you're a big content creator, you become garbage? I don't know. But it seems like with 80% or more of content creators, that's the truth. Hell, I'm garbage. There's things about me that are absolute garbage. Not like that. I don't have any sexting of women. I'll tell you. All right. Whoever said their 11-year-old may be listening, get them out of the room. I'll tell you a dirty joke here. So we'll give a second here. I'll start to set it up, but I imagine the kids are leaving. So I had a doctor appointment today, just regular checkup stuff. And I texted my wife and said, hey, I'm back here in the office. The nurse brought me in. I'm at the doctor's place, so I'm just waiting for the doctor. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, yeah, all the nurses are standing around. They think that my penis is too big. And they're all standing around talking about it. And my wife's just like, yeah, okay, right. And I was like, but it's weird. For some reason, it's all male nurses today, and none of them are in nurse scrubs. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not at the doctor's office. I'm at the alley behind the bar. And she's like, yeah, easy mistake to make. I said, that's my joke. Daniel Klein says, am I the best debater because I'm Rob Noor, or are you Rob Noor because you're the best debater? It's a good question. Yeah, that's the old dad joke, the old dad penis joke. Yeah, you know. But I just don't give it. I find it difficult to get fired up about shit like this Harry Sisson shit. I really don't give a shit. I mean, yeah, who could have guessed he's a scumbag? Is it good to be leading multiple women on? No, but it's not illegal, and I just don't give a shit. I just don't. I mean, there's the Schadenfreude in that he's this mightier than thou, oh, respecter of women, etc., etc. Zen says, I was going to super chat you, but after hearing that, I think you should super chat me. I hear you. Not good. And I don't mind people picking on Harry Sisson because it's like, oh, you know, he's getting his comeuppance. I just don't care. I don't care at all. So, all right. Well, okay. Let's talk a little about tomorrow's stream before we wrap up here this fine evening. Tomorrow I'm going to be, I'll ask you all your preference. I'm either going to be streaming later than usual or earlier than usual. I think I'm going to go with later. The reason is, it is the second volleyball game of my niece's career. So she's in high school and she joined the volleyball team. And I believe her first game was this evening or yesterday. But I think yesterday. But tomorrow's her second game, and my wife and I are going to go watch her play. And that starts at 6 p.m. I have no idea how long the game will last. Sometimes the way this works is there's multiple teams there, so she might not be the first team if it's more of a tournament setting, or that there's like a JV game or a junior high game and then JV and then varsity. So I don't know how long it'll last, but we're going to stick around and watch that. Because of that, I doubt I'll be able to start at 7 p.m. Eastern. So I can't tell you a definitive time, but I haven't heard Shane Gillis's volleyball shorts joke, but I do love Shane. So tune in late. You'll see me pop in around 9 p.m., 10 p.m., something like that. Maybe a little earlier than that, depending on what time the game's done. Maybe 8:30. So yeah, thank you. I hope she's not nervous. I think she'll be good at it. I've watched her play baseball, so I'm hoping she enjoys volleyball. So that will be going on. Friday should be sort of a normal show. Harbagnar for $2. Thanks so much. Says thoughts on Conor McGregor's run for president. I think it's good. I think that he is a Irish nationalist who's correct about his country being sold out, and I wish him well. Can I say obfuscate again? Is it obfuscate? Am I saying it wrong? I say obfuscate and it's obfuscate. You got me, Zen. Should have sent that super chat. Maybe I'd have pronounced it right. Yeah, I'm a redneck. I don't have the best pronunciation. I thought the word slippy was a real word until I was like 26. It's slippy outside. It's like, yeah, that's not a word. That's Pittsburgh Yinzer shit. It's like, oh. So that's the plan. I will let you know that there is a chance I have been reached out to by someone. I have no proof that this person is part of Tim Pool's team, but they are telling me that they are someone that's helping Tim Pool set up debates and that they helped Prime K's and Gibbs get on Tim Pool's show. And they asked me if I would be interested in doing Tim Pool's show here coming up soon. And this time the hope would be actually having me debate someone. I would be very interested in that. I think that would be amazing. So I would really enjoy that. So we'll see if that's a possibility coming down the pipe. And then I need to reach out to more people. Yeah, the problem is I've sort of not interested in doing a lot of the normal debate shows that used to, like, I'm done working with Wick. more power to Wick. I wish him the best, but I'm not going to do his show anymore. Who else is doing debate shows anymore, really? So, of course, I'm willing to do them, but, you know, I know that Grid Motorsports talked about getting me on Modern Day Debate. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. No problem at all. Debate JF. I've debated JF before. I would debate JF again. JF is objectively way smarter than me. I just happen to be on the right side of more issues than him. And I'm a pretty good debater, too. Thanks, RD. Yeah, no problem. I need to adjust. I got to talk to Black Elk. It says that debate's lost media. That's a bummer. That was a good one. It might be somewhere on one of my channels. Debate HN. I don't know that HN's coming back. I think we made him mad. So, you know, I need to be more aggressive in reaching out to people like Andrew, Jake Rattlesnake, Alex Stein, other folks like that. Another Jim Bob debate. I would debate Jim Bob. I need to call. I just like Jim Bob's another one. I would love to do a show with Jim Bob. It doesn't even have to be a debate. But yeah, I will, Zen, for sure. That was a good debate. Sean Last and JF Gariepy versus me and Andrew Wilson on sort of white nationalist type stuff. I thought that it was. I don't know that I've ever seen JF on his back foot as much as when he was debating me on that. When he accused me of being a cuck. Now, again, this is a great example on like just your normal redneck thinking through something could be more useful than being like a genius. Because JF's argument was basically because I said I don't really give a shit about like promulgating European genetics. To me, I do care about having a child and that child being half me and half my wife. But if my wife happened to be black or Native American or whatever, it would still be half me and half her. And I wouldn't feel bad like, oh, I just didn't care. And his argument was that that made me a cuck and that meant that I would somehow be for people of color having sex with my wife and having children with her. Which makes zero sense. How would that be? What did I say there that said just because I'm interested in my child being my child, I just don't care if half of them is from someone of a different race. But actually, using JF's argument to the logical extension, that would make him the cuck. Because if someone came around, if JF's only 97% European, but someone came around that was 99% European, then JF would say, please have sex with my wife. Because by you having a child with my wife would be more likely to promulgate European ancestry. And he doesn't have an answer to that. And he doesn't. There is no answer to that. If you are someone whose procreation mindset is, it is most important to keep a pure European dynasty and ethnic line, and that's more important, that's the most important criteria you have, then anyone that comes around as a male that has that line more pure than you should want them to procreate with your wife. Yeah, I think he maybe tried to claim he was 100% European. Probably bullshit. But nonetheless, I'm sure he has supporters that aren't 100% European, even if he is. And so his advice to them would be, hey, if I come around, I'm 100%. Let me have sex with your wife. And they would cuck out and be like, sure. What's my body count and why is it 200? Yeah, that's good. All right. So I could sit around and do some karaoke, start a new video, but I'm probably not going to do that today. JF's a smart dude. He's objectively smart. And there's a lot of things he says that I think is very insightful. A lot of his talk on genetics and shit. I can't keep up with that shit. And I'm not going to pretend to. But that doesn't mean I agree with his conclusions. I mean, JF made the claim in that debate every one of the prosecutors against Kyle Rittenhouse were Jewish. Really? By the way, there's this guy, Vadim, who I debated before, some lefty dude. Because when JF said that, he was like, every one of the prosecutors was Jewish. I was like, really? Can you show me that? And Vadim cut that out of context like 10 seconds. Like, look at this, Rob. Look at Rob, white nationalist Rob. When I'm arguing against that. Would I debate PF Chung? I've talked to PF. Yeah, I would debate him, no problem. PF's got this weird thing though, right? Where it's like he wanted me to like, he's so weird. Like, he wanted me to come on and argue with Sitch about January 6th and alternative electors and stuff. And he's like, the whole time he's like inserting himself like as a moderator's like, okay, let's not argue. Let's pretend we're sitting around a campfire. And it's like, okay, dude, I don't know what you're getting at. It's your show. I mean, do what you want. But yeah, he seems like a likable guy, though. I don't know if that Vadim's the same guy that you're talking about. No, Captain did not call in. He will pretend that he was busy and couldn't be here today. Is there a way to... Yeah. Let me check something real quick. Looking for something. Let me get this. I will say, though, I'm really enjoying my new headset. It inspired me to possibly, because I could actually hear myself talking now in it, inspired me to potentially do some karaoke. But we'll pass tonight, I think. Unless someone wants to send me a big pile of money to do karaoke, then I will do that. But now I was seeing if there's a way to see who is watching. Sometimes you could do that. I think with Twitch you could do that. And so I thought it would be funny to see if my captain's actually on here watching. Yeah, you know, I have no opinions on whether or not JF's responsible for the disappearance of his wife. Innocent till proven guilty. I don't care to jump into that drama, if I'm honest. So I watched him when Andrew Wilson interviewed him. Circumstantially, it looks bad, but JF's also a weird guy, and he could 100% be telling the truth. I just have no opinions on it. I don't really care. You're summoning Jess Gerald to send me a bunch of money, so I'll do karaoke. Here's the thing, though. If I do karaoke, like now on this stream, what will happen is it'll be demonetized, which is crappy. Oops. 1 second. I unplugged my microphone. Okay, there we go. So it would be demonetized. And so I would have to start a new stream. Debate Ask Yourself on Veganism. Debate Ben Thorpe. Ben Thorpe's someone I don't want to engage with anymore because it's too weird what goes on with his daughter. I guess if it was a big enough platform, I would debate Ben Thorpe. But as far as I'm concerned, he's basically putting his daughter out there as sort of some weird eye candy for clicks and shit. It's just too weird for me. I don't want to be any parts of it. I remember when JF did a rap battle with G-Man on Drunken Debates. Drunken Peasants, that's funny. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Ben Thorpe as far as that stuff went. I did debate him, though, once. I wasn't impressed. I've never talked to Mr. Girl. I would talk to Mr. Girl. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't know what we would debate on. But Kyla, who's that? I think I've talked to Kyla before. I could be wrong. Well, Brimstone says, if you have recessive traits like green eyes, it's okay to desire to breed with someone else that has green eyes to pass them on. I'll go further than that. If you're white and you want to breed with only white people, what the hell do I have a problem with that? You have every right to do that. It doesn't make you a shitty person to have a preference. There's plenty of black people that feel that way. In fact, it's a trope that's probably based in reality of like the black parent that's upset when his black daughter brings home a white boyfriend. It's like, fuck that. I didn't want you to have a white boyfriend. I don't have a problem with that. I've debated Not So Erudite on what was the name of the sort of show that they used to do on Destiny's Channel that it was like they would eliminate someone every round. And it was the last round was me versus Not So Erudite, and Destiny, who's supposed to be one of the moderators, furiously typing, giving her things to say, and I'm still wrecking her. But of course, the audience voted for her. But that's okay. Debate Hank on whether or not he should have a bedtime. I would lose. Hank's the man. We played it. He's got this Play-Doh set that's like a dental set, so you can make little teeth for this guy, and then little fillings. You can put in gold Play-Doh and silver Play-Doh, and it's pretty cool. Whatever happened to Zen? Did he have a falling out with Andrew, or has he just moved on with his life, or is he still streaming and I just don't see? I don't know. I did. Oh, he has a kid now. Good for him, man. Good for Zen. I like Zen. He's all right. Yeah, I believe that. Andrew, a falling out with Andrew would be something like this. Hey, man, let's just amicably part ways, and I'm never going to talk shit on you publicly. That would be a falling out. So I'm not surprised that it wasn't a falling out. Oh, he moderated a debate for Jim Bob recently? Yeah, I debated Jangles, and it was not good. He doesn't know what he's talking. He thinks that he puts himself as someone that's really well read. Let me I shouldn't do this, but I don't care. Remember the other day when this guy from Latin America called in? He's from Costa Rica. His name was Ditso. You remember this? And I should bring up this clip. Do a little debate review. All right, let's see if I can find this. This is reaching for content now, but that's all right. All right. I want to show you a debate tactic. It's something that I find very interesting. But thinking of Jangles reminded me of this. That did feel Jangles with tomfoolery and Andrew. That did feel like a decade ago. I did see Andrew get attacked on whatever. Oh, Andrew brings out those crazies, doesn't he? Have to fill in the gap that the United States is filling in Ukraine, and they can't do it.
Main justification that led towards then the NATO thing, the NATO intervention, was the civil war that was already happening in Libya.
Right.
That you had anti-Gaddafi forces. Gaddafi had Portugal, South Africa, France, United Kingdom, and the United States. Well, South
Africa send weapons and stuff to the rebels.
No.
If I remember,
okay, right. But what was the main?
There we go. I can't believe I found that already. Watch this tactic that Ditso does. Right. I'm just going to let this play and see what you think about this. I like this Ditso guy. I do. Right. So don't take it the wrong way. But this is it's a debate tactic worth discussing here for a minute. You ready? Now watch what happens. I'm just going to let this play out, and then I'll tell you what I'm talking about.
For the intervention of NATO-led countries on Libya, the no-fly zone. Okay, right. But what was the main element that was utilized to then justify the whole process that happened in Libya and the fall of Gaddafi?
If I remember right, wasn't it? There was this speech that Gaddafi gave where he basically was like, "We're going to take out people in this certain city," and then that's what at least Obama used back in the United States to say. That's our excuse for why we need to send weapons and stuff to the rebels.
No, the main body that was utilized back in March of 2011 or 2011 was Resolution 1973 of the Security Council. That was actually presented by France, Lebanon, and the United Kingdom, which was voted favorably by Bosnia, Herzegovina, Colombia, Gabon, Lebanon, Nigeria, Portugal, South Africa, France, United Kingdom, and the United States. While Brazil, Germany, India, China, and Russia abstained from voting on that. That was the main particular justification internationally that led into.
Yeah, but what's that say? You're Googling something and you're reading like what this resolution, the name of it. What did it say? What was the justification that they gave? What did it say that they were then able
main
to do?
Justification that led towards then the NATO thing, the NATO intervention, was the civil war that was already happening in Libya.
Right.
That you had anti-Gaddafi forces. Gaddafi had been in power for almost 20 years by that time. You had the anti-Gaddafi forces for at least the decade before, putting pressure on Gaddafi, putting pressure on change. Let's just face it on one thing. Gaddafi was a son of a out and dude.
Would you admit that that's probably the case with like 100 countries today?
Oh,
okay, that's all I need to see. What? Now, the reason I bring that clip up is very similar to Jengles, in that what just happened there? He's like, I'm like, yeah, NATO gets involved in wars all the time. Like they got involved in Libya. Look how that turned out. And he's like, well, what was the reasoning? What was the rationale? What was the mechanism? And I was like, I believe the way it was sold in the United States was that there's this conflict going on in Libya, and Gaddafi allegedly said he was going to bomb his own people and kill his own people. But in reality, what it was he was saying, hey, these people raising up arms against me, if you let down your arms, I won't attack you. But if you refuse to, then I'm going to have to attack you. And Ditso says, actually, it was Resolution 173 signed by blah, blah. And he's just blatantly reading something from Google. Now, let me tell you how no doubt this came about. Ditso he said he doesn't really have a channel. What had happened was he's probably heard me many times talk about my displeasure with groups like NATO and their interventionism in places like Syria and Libya. And so he says, I'll Google something to make me sound smart, to show some level of expertise. Okay, so my criticism is we were basically sold a bill of goods to say, hey, Americans, hey, NATO countries, we need to get involved here. Then NATO got involved. Then they killed Gaddafi, and now the country's worse off because of it. And he's trying to make it seem like to an audience, actually, I know more than Rob about this because I know the resolution number. But does that mean that he knows more about it? Does that mean that my claim is incorrect? No. It's a way of using jargon or some sort of knowledge that he was able to quickly look up that's sort of irrelevant to the broader point that's made. It would be like the equivalent of he says, actually, not only was it Resolution 1873 that was signed by these countries and not supported by these countries, but if you remember, it was done on one of the original MacBook Pros, was one of the original ones that they did. And you'll remember specifically that it was done this way. And the sort of telecommunication that went with the MacBook Pros, they went in this way. It's like, wow, very impressive. What the hell does that have to do with what we're talking about? That's exactly what Jengles does. Jengles will be like, I'll throw out a bunch of names of authors and stuff. I debated Jengles on critical race theory, and I start talking about Stefanik and all these people that were like the original authors of critical race theory. Basically, my argument is the way we determine what critical race theory is, there's one of two ways we could do it. What the contemporaneous authors that are attached to it are saying, or if you prefer, what the original authors that coined the term were saying. In both of those, we could see the critical race theory is terrible. I'm willing to talk about both of them. And Jengles just kept saying things like, but I've read a lot more than you. I've read more than you. And I'm like, okay, but what am I saying that's incorrect? Well, I've read more than you. And what about this author and this author and this author? And you'll see this with people like Econoboy, right? They'll know a bunch of jargonistic terms in the field of economics, but then when it gets right down to it, it's like, yeah, printing a bunch of money doesn't cause inflation. What? Yeah, I do try to summarize it and make it. It's not. It is making it simple, but it's more importantly that it's distilling it down to the facts that are relevant to have a conversation. And again, it's the equivalent of this. This is how I'd put it. Let's say you don't know anything about cars, like being a mechanic, and so you're pretty sure that you're having a problem with your transmission. And you take it into the shop, and you're like, okay, it's going to cost me about $600-700. I've priced these, and you take it into the shop. And all of a sudden, the shop owner starts selling you this bill of goods that it's all this other stuff and it's going to cost you $8,000. Now, they may be able to talk more technically than you about, oh, well, do you know exactly where your engine was manufactured? You don't. Well, everyone knows that your Hemi would have been manufactured in this plant. And you remember that specific year, it had problems with like the third piston that was coming through that. And blah, blah. Yeah, they might be able to talk like that, but does that mean that they're telling the truth? Do I think Synth's a good debater? Yeah, he certainly spurgs out way too much, and he'll do things that I think are sort of. Well, give me a second, I'll talk about it. But he's certainly since smart, he's capable of putting arguments together. So yeah, I think he's a good debater. Let's friend of the show, Andrew Wilson. Let me talk shit on Andrew for a minute here. Let me do this. Synth does something that Andrew does that sometimes gets on my nerves. Sometimes I think they get too semantical, right? So like, if I debated in college, policy debate that I did in college, the wording of the topic is very important. Like the actual specific wording. One side has to be affirmative, which means they have to defend the resolution, and the other side is negating, negative. Now, that doesn't mean they have to negate the resolution, but they have to negate the plan that the affirmative puts forth in some way. So, let's say that the resolution said, resolve, the United States federal government should substantially reduce subsidies in one of the following 5 areas. You, as the affirmative, have to have a plan that meets the burden of that resolution. So you might say, we'll reduce 5% of corn subsidies. There are entire debates in collegiate debate where it's like, okay, you only reduce corn subsidies 5%. That doesn't meet the language of the resolution, which says you have to reduce substantially, because we think substantial means at least 20%. And then the affirmative will say, no, substantially means of material worth, which we think in this case 5% would meet. And that's the whole debate. The whole debate is, what is the definition of the word substantial? Because if the affirmative doesn't meet the definition of the word substantial, they lose. And it's not really avoiding the topic, because what your goal is as an affirmative in policy debate in college is to meet the burden of the topic as lightly as possible. Well, it's not always the goal, but a lot of times that's what teams try to do. Because, for example, if I said, okay, let's get rid of all the subsidies, all corn subsidies, all rice subsidies, there's going to be a lot of easier negative ground. So any evidence you have that ending subsidies would be bad would clearly apply to that. But if I only get rid of 2% of corn subsidies, when you stand up and you read your evidence that says getting rid of subsidies will hurt the country, I'd say, yeah, but we're only getting rid of 2%. So you have to be substantial so that the negative has some ground to argue against, right? If I just said get rid of some subsidies and I said, let's get rid of corn subsidies, $10 worth of corn subsidies. And here's my reason that would be good, because the $10 that I'm talking about went to farmer Jim Smith, and he's a prick. He beats his wife. That's clearly not within the spirit of what the topic of the debate was. And so you have to be substantial, right? There's other words that, what is a subsidy? What is the United States federal government? It's called topicality. You have to be topical if you're the affirmative. And it's usually considered an a priori issue. If you win the debate, if the topic is you have to substantially get rid of subsidies, and you stand up and you say, we should go back to the moon. NASA should send someone back to the moon. You might kill me in that debate. Here's 50 reasons that that's a good thing, right? And so you win that debate, but you would still lose the overarching debate, because it's like, that's interesting. You're saying interesting things, but that has nothing to do with the resolution. So you lose. Hypothetically, that's how it's supposed to go. But the style of debate that we're doing online, you're not really picking a winner or loser. And so I don't oftentimes think that the semantics of it are that interesting. sometimes definitions can matter, and certainly I'm not saying all semantical arguments are bad, but like, let me give you an example. I debated Andrew Wilson once on reparations, and Andrew had this like crazy like extrapolation of defining reparations in a specific way to basically get out of the debate and get into like a Christian nationalist debate. I don't give a shit. Okay, let's debate that. I don't give a shit. For me, it's like, let's have an interesting debate about shit that we disagree. I'm always trying to, because to me, one of the most boring things is when people are agreeing. So it's like, let's find an area to disagree about. I don't give a shit. Like, fine by me. And the reason I bring this up in the context of synth, the last time I debated synth, I can't remember the exact specific scenario, but it was something to do with this. He said that he would pick a moderator. I forget who he picked, but it was one of his friends. And the topic was Vosh sort of saying he was okay with, or he wanted a world where people were shooting or would taking pot shots at Patriot Prayer out windows. And I was talking about how that was like stochastic, like Vosh's definition. He always complains about stochastic terrorism, and why wouldn't that meet the definition? Regardless of what it was, I said something, and Synth was like, yeah, I'll debate you on this. And I said, fine. And then I DM'd Synth and was like, here's what the debate should be. Here's exactly what I'm saying. And he said, yeah, that's fine. Let's do this debate. And then when we got in the debate, he like went word through word what my public post on X was that he challenged me to debate on. And it was like, it's not proof of stochastic terrorism. And my argument was never that it was 100% proof of stochastic terrorism, because proof, like beyond a reasonable doubt, or 100% positive. I was just saying this meets the standard of what Vosh was saying, and it's something that we should criticize. We shouldn't want a world where you're saying there's a transgenocide. And basically, Synth was like, nope. All I'm arguing is this 100% proof? Is it 100% proof? Even if you're right that it's evidence suggesting it, it's not 100% proof. There, I win the debate. And I was like, but Synth, I told you in the DMs when we were discussing what the debate would be. What? Who cares about DMs? Who cares about DMs? All that matters is what was said publicly, what was agreed to publicly. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what, you want this to be some like big cement? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's very, you know, and it's just like, you look at something like that, you're like, what's the fucking point here? And like a bunch of people were like, oh yeah, Rob's unwilling to debate the specific topics. Yeah, debate styles make fights, sure. People, the style, like Andrew's definitely more like arguing when it comes to like think of the different people that I interact with. Andrew's are more interested in arguing like philosophy. He's more interested in arguing like definitions and things like that because he's talking about philosophy. The same could be true of someone like Fabian Liberty or Casimir. They're more interested in adopting a philosophical approach. I'm just some dumb redneck. I don't think philosophy debates are bad. I'm not saying that. I'll do philosophy debates. But I'm debating on things like, should we pack the court? Is the FBI corrupt? I'm debating like practical political positions in the world today. So it's just, it's a different, neither style is right or wrong. Neither opinion on the types of things you like to debate are right or wrong. It's just different. It just is. And, you know, maybe it's time for me and Andrew to have another debate. Argue about the sad part is most of the interactions me and Andrew have publicly now are debates against each other. When the irony is we probably agree on 95% of shit, but we're both looking for good people to debate, and we like debating each other because we know that we're both good. So like when I will admit, I think I could have done better when I was debating that Jasmine person. Maybe I shouldn't have got so personal. But I don't know. I really don't mind either. She got personal with me first, so I really don't give a shit. But that debate was so weird because the way it was set up, like, who was it that set that debate up? They just kept asking me all these questions was like, well, what do you think of no-fault divorce? And I was like, I don't know. Never really thought about it. And it was funny because whoever set that debate up we then had a separate moderator, and they're like trying to get me to go heavy on the OnlyFans shit. Go ahead. And I'm like, I really don't talk about that shit much. I really don't have strong opinions on like no-fault divorce and shit like that. And it was like, that's the debate they wanted though. And so we get into the debate and we start the topic with no-fault divorce. And I'm like, there's not a lot of disagreement there. So I'm desperately trying to find something that we disagree on. That's what I'm doing at the beginning of that debate. And ultimately what I settled on was Jasmine sort of making the argument that in general, it's not a bad thing for people to want divorce. It's actually normal human nature that we are serial monogamous. And so on average, people turn over relationships and enter a new monogamous relationship every 10 years. And my argument was that's bad. But the original topic was no-fault divorce. But it would have been boring for me to just be like, I sort of don't know much about no-fault divorce and we should probably allow it. Isn't that boring? Isn't that? But then she's just like, yeah, I kind of agree. And that's the debate. I just, yeah, I mentioned to Jake, I would love to come on his show. I think that'd be cool. Me and Andrew actually are very good as debate partners because of our different styles. And we're both capable of leaving the other one take the driver's seat when necessary. Alex PWF, it sounds familiar, but was that who, hosted that debate? Yeah, moderated. So, hey, listen, I hate to do this to you. I would love to stay and talk to you all night, but I hear my man downstairs. Yeah, I will. I'm sure Andrew and Jake will bring me on. Also, Alex Stein's offered to have me in his studio to do that show, so I'll get to that shit. It's just really, last thing I'll say before I go, it's really tough to set this stuff up. Like, I have to be honest with you. I'm so thankful, not just for all of you that watch, for the people that comment, for the people that like the video, if you haven't, thank you for that. For the people that share my content with other people, I'm so thankful for that. The people that donate financially. But I'm very thankful for someone like Black Elk, too, my editor, who does a tremendous job. I gotta be honest, I don't put any work into this show almost except what you see live. It's part of it's because I'm a lazy sack of shit, but most of it, if I'm being honest with you, is because I work so much. I'm beating a dead horse here, but on what me and my coworker have decided to do to give us a little more time every other week is Saturday at 2:00. I go in half the time. Sunday at 2:00, I go in half the time. But once I'm at work, I'm there 24/7. That means I don't get to hang out with my family. I get downtime. I get time where I'm not being paid, but I have to be physically on the premise. So I can't go home, right? So that means that Saturday at 2 p.m. this week, I'll be at work. So that's Saturday at 2. Then I'll be there all day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday, all day Tuesday. And then Wednesday, I get to leave at 2:00. Then the following week, I'll go in Sunday at 2, and I'll be there Sunday all day, Monday all day, Tuesday all day, Wednesday leave at 2. So that averages out to literally, there's only 2 people that work at the house. So that means literally half the week, every week. There's 168 hours in a week. At a minimum, I have to be there 84 hours every week, unless I take a week off. Then you have to factor in things like trainings. Because I'm the head of our house, I have to do all the medical appointments. So if there's any medical appointment that occurs on a day I'm not there. So I usually end up averaging close to, even though I don't get paid 84 hours because I don't get paid on my 8-hour downtime shift or more downtime. But most weeks I'm putting in close to 95 to 100 hours. Then I have a family that I like to spend time with. So most of the time, what I like doing the most, the reason I stream is because I like it. I have fun with it. I don't really like doing editing. I don't really like bothering people. Hey, can I be on your show? I'm shit at that stuff. I don't like it. And so I don't do it because I'm so busy anyways. And so I could come on here till I'm blue in the face. Like, I know I should pester Tim Pool's people more. I know I should get in touch with Andrew Wilson and pester him about getting on him and Jake's show. I know I should pester Alex Stein. I know I should be pestering Piers Morgan's people. But I just don't. As soon as I'm off here, I'm going down and hanging out with my wife and kid. We're going to watch probably Despicable Me 4 for like the 5 millionth time. But that's okay. I'm going to have fun. And like, that's what it is. So maybe I need a manager, but, yeah, look, I'm self-conscious. I always feel like I'm asking people favors. Andrew Wilson has, more than any person I've interacted with, through the sweat of his own brow, created something that is absolutely incredible on these streaming platforms, where so many people rightfully have struggled on places like YouTube because everything is against them that are right-wingers. The algorithms against you, the shadow bans, the demonetization, the community guideline strikes, all of that shit's against you. And Andrew has persevered despite all of that because of his work ethic and busting his ass. And yeah, he's had people like Zen or people like Mr. E, Chickenfoot, and others behind the scenes. And he has people like his wife, Rachel, that are really helping him out. But basically, it's him. That's why. And so I never want to feel like I'm taking advantage of Andrew. Oh, he built this big thing. He's making a bunch of money. More importantly, that he has a huge reach. He gets to go in places like Piers Morgan's and shit. He's deserved every minute of that. And I don't want to sit here and be like, hey, Andrew, can you throw me some scraps? Can you have me on your show, please? Can you give me a rub? Fuck all that. That's whiny charity shit. That's how I look at it. So that's why I don't like to pester and reach out and all that shit. And it's not that Andrew wouldn't have me on, but he's so fucking busy, he ain't going to just reach out to me. So that's what happens. Sure, no problem, Green Soldier. Yeah, I know adversity, and that's what I say. But that's how I look at it. Same with Alex Stein. Alex, every year when I do my 24-hour show, Alex always comes on and does it. Always. And he's always like, hey, man, hit me up. We'll do the show sometime. And then I just never I'm always like, I'll sound too needy. I don't want to reach out to him. Like, I'm always asking for a favor. Can I do your show? Yeah, I'll reach out to Jake. I like Jake. I've done his show once, and I enjoyed it. So, but yeah, that's why I'm more likely to talk to people that have less of a following than me, because I don't feel bad about that. I don't feel like, oh, I'm only talking to you because I gained something from talking to you, or it appears to that. You don't think me doing streams with Alex Stein's a good idea? Why not, HN? Alex is fine. He has a different approach to me. I don't agree with everything he does either, but I don't think it would get too crazy. Yeah, Destiny definitely spurred out in that conversation. Sarah Raging Tomato, maybe. So, all right, I got to go. Tomorrow, late stream. So I apologize. It won't be 7 p.m. I don't know what time it'll be. Look for me sometime probably between 8 p.m. and 9:30. Whenever my niece's volleyball game's over. So, all right. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you all. You guys are the best. Thank you to everyone that gave a like. Thanks to everyone, even people like HN. Good sport, even though we're giving him shit. Honestly, a good sport. HN, I didn't title you troll in that video. I don't think it's a big deal. You understand sort of the idea of little bit of clickbaity titles. I stand behind everything that my editor, Black Elk, does. I don't think that that's over the line or anything like that. If he called you a racial slur or something like that, maybe I'd think you have a point. I don't think it's that big. I also never heard you say, I'll only call in if you agree to not broadcast this. That's just sort of nonsensical. I would never agree to that. Petrogard, thanks for the $5, says, see this before you go. I did. Thank you. But no hard feelings to anyone like that. So, all right. Thanks so much, everyone, especially those that donated. I'm going to try to figure out how to do my closing video here with my music, and we will see you all late tomorrow evening. As always, have a good one.